Our rights are on the line, folks.
Bitch!
The right to buy Cosby sweaters?
Come on.
That's the face of a serial killer.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, just hit the unfollow button.
That said, our primary purpose is to entertain, and where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world, but the first thing we need to do is entertain.
There was an in-depth piece, like a behind-the-scenes piece, talking about how they've been in a full meltdown about this girl for a couple of years now.
AMC's declaration that it was removing Disney's live-action Snow White remake from all its theaters sent shockwaves through the entertainment world.
Yeah, I have a clip of it.
Oh, okay, great.
Her being a retard.
Okay.
It's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
That laugh.
That is
Not going to be saved by
You
the
wrote
prince.
it?
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Disney had initially planned for a triumphant release, buoyed by the story's iconic heritage and bolstered by the high-wattage celebrities involved.
It's no really knock on her. If you did the autobiography of Malcolm X, would you cast Tom Hanks? If you remade Moana, would you cast a little Irish guy? No, you wouldn't. So that was off the top.
Yet, in a surprising move, AMC announced it no longer saw any justification for keeping the film on its screens.
It is not racist to suggest that a character who is described in the original as skin white as snow, that is literally how the character is described in the original, that's a character description in the same way that, as you mentioned, in Moana.
Ticket sales had collapsed so dramatically that continuing to show the film amounted to empty seats and lost revenue. Resources that could be better allocated to more lucrative titles.
This bizarre fixation with race shifting everything, but only in one direction by Disney, obviously is quite strange.
While the slump had been building for weeks, few suspected the situation would reach such an extreme. Not even Disney, with its legendary marketing machine and seemingly endless resources, could salvage this reinterpretation from the swirling controversies shadowing it.
Snow White is generally understood to be a very, very white person. And in this case, they decided, nope, no, that doesn't make any sense. So I don't think we're allowed to say that, right? I was referring to the movie as sand beige.
Each fresh rumor and public flare-up fueled an ever-growing backlash from fans. Disney's publicity campaign had promised a new spin on a classic story, showcasing an emerging talent in Rachel Zegler alongside an established star in Gal Gadot. Practically every conceivable mishap, however, took place, peaking in AMC's highly unusual decision to axe the film's theatrical run well before there was any chance of a last-ditch recovery.
It just takes a beloved movie and makes it much more boring and much less realistic. The movie is really, really bad.
Industry analysts scrambled to pinpoint the fundamental cause of this disaster. Some argued that audiences were tired of Disney's repeated attempts to refresh its classic canon. Others felt that Rachel Zegler's high-profile meltdown, combined with her outspoken public stances and a corporate PR strategy that came off as forced and lacking sincerity, led to the steep plunge in attendance. Whatever the precise source of the downturn, the film's underwhelming box office figures, piled on top of unrelenting bad press, made it impossible for AMC to justify keeping it on display.
The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Say it louder so your other eye can hear you.
So we didn't do that this time.
How a once promising production fell so far became a cautionary episode of its own. Joe Rogan dedicated a substantial segment on his podcast to dissect the fiasco in granular detail, pointing out that AMC's decision to axe the film went beyond acknowledging poor earnings. It was a cultural flashpoint, demonstrating that even Disney's usual edges, long-standing brand loyalty, elite marketing, and renowned casts can fail to secure a hit.
Well, the primary suffering is being sent in by my company to watch a children's movie as a single man, like 2 p.m. on a Thursday. That was the first part that was a little bit weird, but I was basically the only person in the theater.
The meltdown drowned out every other aspect of the movie. Rogan traced the steps leading to the public implosion, including Rachel Zegler's uncompromising interviews, her contentious commentary on The View, and her social media posts that deviated drastically from Disney's scripted messaging. The meltdown took place with a live studio audience, turning what might have been a routine press stop into a tabloid sensation.
You don't particularly see people who, look like me or are me playing roles like that. So it was definitely, when it got announced,
He wasn't a stalker, by the way.
thing that was like trending on Twitter for days because all of the people were angry.
In Rogen's eyes, the meltdown would have been harmful in any situation, but paired with fundamental revisions to the beloved tale, it created a near-ideal recipe for disaster. Initially, Rachel Zegler was seen as an exciting choice for the central role. She had proven vocal abilities, a modern sense of self, and the promise of bridging old and new generational tastes.
And so it was like
those people.
very much this, yes. It was this
people that we
awakening
need to educate, the people that we need to love into awareness.
love them in the right direction.
But when hints of the film's changes emerged, fans realized that critical plot points, key themes, and character arcs had been significantly altered or scrapped altogether. This shift away from a faithful adaptation sparked widespread skepticism. Many wondered if Disney, in its push to evolve the story, had discarded the heartfelt elements that made the original resonate. In the midst of this uproar, Rachel Zegler's public persona poured fuel on the fire.
We need to no, you don't need, it's not your job. Your job is to entertain. You are paid to entertain.
Some of her statements appeared dismissive of the story's classic features, at least according to many fans, implying the old narrative was obsolete, an antiquated relic unworthy of reverence. Social media erupted with fury. Fans who might have viewed Zegler as a refreshing addition suddenly branded her as a symbol of everything wrong with the reinterpretation.
Very few people wanted to see this. Even the little kids who like Disney movies, even they don't seem to be turning up in droves for the movie because the movie is really, really bad.
Disney, to its credit, tried to contain the damage via a string of talk show appearances, hoping to salvage the movie's public image before opening day. But Zegler's independent streak clashed with Disney's more regimented approach to PR. On social media, she consistently posted her own opinions, declaring she wouldn't betray her values to suit a corporate script. Under different circumstances, this stance might have won her admiration, but given the sensitive nature of the project and the protective attitude fans held toward the original, it poured gasoline on an already blazing controversy.
And so I've got some bona fides here on being fair. The movie was absolutely terrible.
Critics believed her rhetoric sometimes sounded disdainful toward longtime enthusiasts, though supporters insisted she was merely championing modern viewpoints and broader representation. Inevitably, the conflict between an assertive star and a global entertainment conglomerate turned into the main storyline, overshadowing the film's actual creative contributions. As word circulated about probable box office struggles,
in every way that the movie differed from the beloved 1937 original, it was worse.
Experts speculated that Disney's upper echelons were growing uneasy. Bob Iger, who had returned to a top executive role, was known for deftly steering the company around PR quagmires. But with each passing day, Disney's strategy seemed increasingly disjointed. Rather than presenting a cohesive approach, fans observed contradictory declarations from the cast, internal rumors of chaos, and an overall sense that no one had a handle on the crisis. The meltdown on The View epitomized this lack of unity.
It basically, this movie was like you took the original Snow White and just put everything through this filter of liberalism. It wasn't through a filter of Japanese anime, it was through a filter of liberalism.
The daytime talk show was deliberately chosen by Disney's PR unit as a comfortable venue, designed to spark relatable discussions. The intention was for Rachel Zegler to connect with viewers, soothe fan worries, and convey that while this adaptation was modernized, it still preserved the spirit of the original classic. Behind closed doors, however, tensions were high.
So from the casting to the class politics, the sexual politics, the regime politics, everything about it was liberal.
Production staff from The View allegedly received strict instructions from Disney on messaging priorities, topics for Ziegler to highlight, and sensitive angles to avoid. The moment the broadcast started, it was clear that Rachel Ziegler had her own agenda. She opted to weigh in on socio-political issues unrelated to the movie, showing little inclination to stick to the pre-approved corporate language. The show's producers, under pressure from Disney, tried in vain to keep her on topic, but the friction was unmistakable. Throughout the live segment, she offered statements that critics later labeled provocative, arguing the original plot was behind the times and that die-hard loyalists needed to embrace progress. fans already harboring doubts heard these comments as a personal affront, igniting a wave of outrage that lit up social media feeds everywhere. Seconds later came the actual meltdown. Witnesses described frantic off-camera gestures as producers attempted to interrupt Zegler or redirect the conversation. She stood her ground, doubling down. The segment derailed so rapidly that co-hosts Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin struggled to maintain composure. Staff from The View stepped in to guide Ziegler away from the set, and cameras abruptly went to commercial. The meltdown itself never fully aired, but partial clips and behind-the-scenes recollections spread like wildfire online, fueling a massive media scandal. Viral jokes, memes, and heated discussions followed, ensuring every future mention of the film linked back to that chaotic live broadcast. In his podcast analysis, Joe Rogan depicted the meltdown as a colossal PR catastrophe. Disney not only lost control of the narrative, it did so in the most public, real-time way conceivable. Recovery efforts kicked in immediately, but the meltdown had already become unstoppable, a rallying cry for those who viewed the new Snow White as an insult to the cherished original. Critics of Rachel Ziegler seized on the incident, labeling it proof of her being overly headstrong for a production in which a certain level of corporate alignment was expected. Her supporters countered that she was simply exercising free speech. The blowout drew commentary from every media outlet, eclipsing the attention that might otherwise have gone to the rest of the cast, including Gal Gadot. Gadot, originally believed to provide a stabilizing influence through her star power and credibility, ended up overshadowed by the meltdown narrative. Rumors emerged of tension between the two leads, suggesting Zegler had privately criticized Gadot's background or beliefs, though none of it was confirmed, fueling the impression that animosity plagued the entire set. Gadot minimized her involvement, issuing only standard expressions of enthusiasm for the film. Some assumed this was her way of preserving her reputation. Regardless, the publicity tour lost its unified, positive energy and was replaced by swirling conjecture about clashing personalities. Fan backlash was swift and vicious. Social media lit up with "Not My Snow White" tags. Disappointed fans felt betrayed by the film's drastic deviations from the original, while others were put off by what they interpreted as Ziegler's disdain for tradition. These sentiments were reflected in the opening weekend's box office. Despite Disney's enormous marketing budget, the film couldn't achieve even modest projections. Theater operators like AMC, who had anticipated a family-friendly smash, found themselves with half-filled auditoriums. Parents took their kids to see other movies, either because of the film's controversy or because they'd grown weary of the endless negative headlines. Faced with plummeting ticket sales, AMC had to make a tough call. Major Disney releases typically secure guaranteed theater windows to the mutual benefit of both studio and exhibitors. However, as the storm of bad press persisted, AMC realized each showing meant bleeding cash. Tickets were so sparse that shifting screens to more stable hits made better financial sense. The film had gone toxic, mired in scandal that not even lavish production values could offset. So, in an unprecedented move, particularly for a major Disney offering, AMC chose to withdraw the movie altogether. The implementation varied by region, but soon AMC channels confirmed it was over. Asked to explain, AMC representatives stated the film's abysmal performance no longer justified the screen time. Internal reports hinted that local theater managers felt demoralized by the weak attendance. Some claimed customers openly dismissed the film as they passed by, having been swayed by the meltdown drama, making continued showings untenable. Pundits wondered if AMC's relationship with Disney might suffer. Others speculated Disney privately agreed with the choice, since persisting would only deepen the embarrassment. Joe Rogan called this move a watershed event. In his perspective, it wasn't merely a scheduling matter. It was proof that the traditional partnership between Disney and major exhibitors can buckle if a film becomes overly controversial. Even well-financed tentpoles risk being yanked if they alienate the paying public. For him, the meltdown on The View was the breaking point. Prior to that, some insiders still believed the film might draw a moderate audience out of curiosity, but once footage of the meltdown and the ensuing rumors went viral, any fence-sitters turned apathetic or hostile. The meltdown tore away the veneer of normality, exposing a production teetering on the edge. It also became a case study in how live interviews can go catastrophically off script. Typically, PR campaigns are designed to keep everyone aligned on talking points, ensuring the star stays on message. Yet The View's live, unscripted format bared just how vulnerable such promotional circuits can be. Once Rachel Zegler took a stand, producers had little ability to rein her in, and the meltdown that followed echoed through the entertainment press for days. Disney's clampdown attempts only reinforced the notion that the studio was prioritizing damage control over honest discourse. Suddenly, even casual onlookers were drawn in by the sheer spectacle playing out in real time. With Bob Iger back at the corporate helm during this turbulent period, some questioned whether Disney's reliance on remakes was a wise long-term strategy. In the past, retelling classic tales had proved profitable, and the company believed brand recognition alone could keep families flocking to theaters. The Snow White debacle showcased the limits of that formula. When controversy flares out of control, even an iconic source material can flop. Critics seized on the meltdown as evidence that Disney had grown complacent, assuming it could modernize a beloved story without truly honoring its foundation. The meltdown further exposed a glaring deficiency in Disney's PR framework. Normally, its marketing arm is in lockstep with corporate leadership and talent, producing a polished front. This time, synergy fell apart. Fans saw conflicting statements, rumored hostility on set, and a general lack of unity, reinforcing the impression that chaos reigned behind closed doors. Some of the most striking moments were unexpected condemnations from within Disney's own sphere. One anecdote mentioned a producer's son publicly slamming Ziegler, calling her defiance harmful to the project. Whether orchestrated or spontaneous, it highlighted that internal divisions had spilled into the open. Under normal circumstances, such disputes remain behind studio walls. Rachel Zegler understandably bristled at these criticisms, insisting she'd been unfairly targeted as the scapegoat. Her defenders agreed, pointing out that the adaptation itself contained inherent flaws, likely to alienate longtime fans even if she had stuck to the scripted lines. But once AMC decided to walk away, all of that was moot. Pulling Snow White from its theaters altogether was a monumental step. Symbolically, the impact was huge. Disney's live-action releases usually get weeks, if not months, in cinemas. For a new Disney feature to vanish so abruptly was practically unheard of, sending a resounding message that not even the most storied studio is safe from a full-scale failure when controversy overshadows the content. The meltdown contaminated the film's reputation so completely that audiences saw it as unworthy of their time and money. Some speculated other theater chains would follow AMC's lead. Smaller operators were already reducing showtimes due to pitiful attendance. AMC's official move simply hammered the final nail in the coffin. The largest theater chain in the US was washing its hands of Snow White. Joe Rogan observed that in a previous era, Disney might have let a misfire ride it out, then recouped costs through home entertainment or foreign markets. But in the age of social media outrage and non-stop news cycles, the meltdown overshadowed every conversation about the film. Even casual viewers, only vaguely aware of the situation, knew about the meltdown, connecting the film more with scandal than with enchantment. That meltdown effectively sealed its fate, dashing any glimmer of support and shutting down defenses from those who might otherwise have praised certain elements of the production. The disaster reignited debates about the term box office poison. Some critics objected to pinning so much blame on Rachel Zegler, suggesting that radical deviations from the cherished original were always going to push away fans. Others pointed to a patchy promotional campaign that never communicated a cohesive vision. Nonetheless, the meltdown on The View became a defining moment, impossible to separate from the film's grim performance. The posters and trailers had spotlighted Rachel Zegler, but the moment she stepped into the promotional spotlight herself, the conversation jumped the rails. Joe Rogan mused that Disney might tighten its policies after this fiasco, perhaps requiring actors in major roles to sign binding clauses that limit spontaneous public commentary. Yet he also warned this could backfire, as audiences might sense manufactured messaging and rebel just as harshly. The meltdown underscored how authenticity, or at least the appearance of it, can make or break a project. Rachel Zegler's meltdown was undeniably authentic, but it didn't align with what audiences wanted to hear. Immediately following the debacle, talk surfaced about the film's shift to streaming. Disney typically prioritizes theatrical runs, yet in light of AMC's pullout, the studio might accelerate its migration to Disney+. Even that approach carries reputational risks, since a hasty jump to streaming often cements a film's failure in the public eye. Rogan theorized the meltdown's repercussions would haunt both Disney and Rachel Ziegler for quite some time. Ziegler's future projects may face extra scrutiny from those fearing another PR storm. Meanwhile, Disney confronts deeper questions about its strategy of reworking beloved classics. The meltdown illuminated how precarious modernizing a timeless favorite can be without alienating its core base. It also had a comedic dimension as late-night hosts and social media comedians latched onto the incident, producing memes about deserted AMC showings and references to the day Snow White died. Disney's formidable public image visibly took a hit, and the meltdown represented a cultural pushback against perceived corporate cynicism. While reboots and reimaginings can succeed, they must handle the essence of the original with care. Once fans suspect the studio of looking down on that legacy, they can turn ferocious in their condemnation, especially when the lead star's live TV meltdown confirms their worst fears. No PR team could spin it positively. When AMC, the backbone of the nation's theater distribution, announced it was done, that was the coup de grace. The closing image, AMC's official communication ending the film's run, encapsulates everything. It stands as a final moment ensuring that this Snow White remake will be remembered not for inventive storytelling or visuals, but for the meltdown that torched its credibility and forced the country's largest theater chain to walk away. This serves as a cautionary turning point, guaranteed to shape how studios handle their stars, their marketing, and their cherished intellectual properties going forward. After all, no one wants a repeat of the meltdown heard round the industry.